Okay, back to dive in some more about the series we're starting on about spiritual warfare. The feedback has, got me on fire with this one. Um, like I said, last week we ended with Ephesians 6:2, where we talked about honor the father and the mother. Spiritual warfare begins with us. That's the foundation, the basis. But culture and environment. And I always talk about be careful who you connected to or what you're connected to, because that's the stigma. Whatever your alignment with, how you perceive, how you respond, that's what's going to change your behavior. And if you're not aligned with the right forces, the right people, then you're going to be going around mountains that weren't ordained for you, that you shouldn't have had to go around. But, we go around the mountain to learn, to grow. Um, I'm trying to get some more. The points that I had put out before, we were talking about identifying the enemy. Go back and look at the spiritual warfare introduction in order to catch up. You can't just listen to bits and pieces of these videos and catch it, because you're going to miss something, and that means you're going to misinterpret something. You got to make sure that you are in alignment. Put on the whole armor. You can't just put on the breastplate, don't put on the sword and everything else, because you're not going to be able to fight. Like I said, we were talking about identifying the enemy. You got to know who your enemy is. And the enemy isn't the flesh or the object or the noun or the tool that's standing before you. It's the spiritual force, the demonic force that's behind it. Sometimes things, when they come at you, they're not from a demonic force. Sometimes God himself sends things to you through your way, because he know you got to come up against it. And he knows once you get past the struggle, once you get past and overcome, that you're going to be promoted, that it's going to make you a better person. We look at the flesh, but we know, or we should know, that we are spiritual beings. We're not fleshly beings. We are spirit beings in a fleshly body. When this world and the earth and everything passes away, the flesh is going to go down to the ground. It's going to go back to ashes, dust for dust. It's going to go back from whence it came. But the spirit is what lives. The spirit cannot die. God is life. And we are created a thought of God, a part of life. So you can't kill that which is living. Let me say that another way. The spirit never dies. The spirit comes from God. He is your creator. We are made in the image of him. He is spirit. The spirit is life. We never die because we're spirit. Our flesh dies. Like I say, it goes back from whence it came. So either we're going to live with him, or we're going to die and reside with demonic forces, the lake of fire, negativity, hell, death, and the grave. You can't kill the spirit. That's the reason why we can't kill the enemy either, because he's spirit. The prince of the air, Satan, is spirit. We go out and lash out and, domestic violence, and, we killing the person that we think that hurt us, but it's the spirit behind the person that's motivating it. That's why when that person is gone, that spirit, that demonic force manifests in someone else, something else, because we can't kill the spirit. Only God can kill the spirit. And we can't even wrap our minds around how he can do that, because we are spirit. We don't know how to kill the spirit. We know how to kill the flesh, but we don't know how to kill the spirit. So you got to understand that with spiritual warfare, that we are spirit beings and not fleshly beings. Now, if we're running around operating in the flesh, the works of the flesh, and we're giving the flesh all the glory, we're feeding our flesh more than we are feeding our spirit, then yeah, we are fleshly beings. But we are spirit beings operating and functioning in our fleshly body. That means we are giving our flesh rule over us instead of God having rule over us. If God is rule over us, then we walk in the fruits of the Spirit: joy, love, peace. Those are, when we're walking in the authority of God. But when we just walking in the pleasures of the flesh, it's a chaos, doing things that flesh does, that doesn't glorify God. And it doesn't edify us either. In the long run, it tears us apart. It tears us down. It pulls us away from God. So when we identify the enemy, we got to identify the spirit behind the thing that we're focusing on. The enemy is always something that you can't see, because it's spirit being. The force behind it is always something that you can't see. Energy, electricity, you see it as it manifests through a light bulb or in electronics and everything, but you can't see it as it's flowing. You can't see a current of electricity. So it's the force or the motivation behind the thing that has manifested, the thing that is powering. Let's say it like that. We talked about prayer and faith as weapons. Most of us don't pray. And some of us pray to other gods, and that's the reason why we don't manifest what we want. We manifest of the world. God is a jealous God, idolatry and all that. God ain't gonna answer them prayers if you're not glorifying him. So you need to make sure you're glorifying him in order to manifest something of God. And whatever you do for God is what's gonna last. If it's not lasting, then that's not of God. We got to go back to praying. We got to go back to talking to our Father. In praying and talking to our Father, that means we believe in him. That means we believe that he exists. That we give homage, that we give honor and glory to him in our life, because we're talking to him. We're not just leaning to our own understanding, doing what we want to do, finding ourselves in positions and circumstances that we wouldn't normally find ourselves in if he was standing right before us. Because we can't see God in our life is the reason why we get caught up in so much of the flesh and doing things that we're not supposed to do. Look at social media. Look at all the pastors that's falling down. That is a very big sign of the great falling away. We are at that point in the book. The Bible didn't lie when it was written. When God inspired, he didn't lie, because we are living right up in the great falling away. We got all kind of pastors coming out of the woodwork, coming out of the dark, talking about homosexuality and all that. I mean, it's the big thing now to govern or judge or look at somebody for who they sleeping with. I don't understand that. What that got to do with anything? I said before on one of the Bible studies, we got a VP president trying to go president, making it a big deal to have a sex change on a murderer and having our tax dollars pay for it. What that got to do with anything? With saving the country, saving the world, the homeless, the seniors that the inflation is so high, they can't live by themselves. They SSI ain't covering it. The disability, the disabled. What that got to do with the affairs of this world? The things that needs to be done. Not saying that the other party is doing any better. He boldly says that he's respect a person. He don't like no people of color. So who's the best of two evils? None. Neither. But what I'm saying is, what are they doing? What does somebody's sexual orientation have anything to do with anybody else in the world besides the people that they're sleeping with, they're engaged with? I don't understand why that is such a big distraction in the world today. Why we are so concerned about LGBTQIA, pansexual, gay, bisexual. Why are we so concerned on what sex or gender that an individual is sleeping with? It has nothing to do with the world. It only has to do between them and between God. It has nothing to do with any of the things in the world. But like I say, we focus on the wrong things. It's a big distraction. We need to pay attention to what's being covered up by that distraction. Find out what's, what they trying to shield away from your eyes. Because it's not the thing that you see. It's always the thing that you don't see that's behind the scenes. We're talking about spiritual warfare. And spiritual warfare means distractions, hindrance, pulling, holding back, deception. That's all tools of the enemy in spiritual warfare. You got to have faith in order to believe in the Spirit. You got to have faith in order to see God. Because God is not, like I say, He's not tangible. He's not something you can touch or you can walk up to and talk and to be able to see Him as you talk to Him. God is somebody that is a spirit that that's there. And you believe that He's there because you've had encounters with Him. Supernatural encounters that you can't understand is there. So you have to have faith in something greater than yourself. If it's not God, if it's not Jesus, Buddha, whoever, you got to have faith in something that, that is greater than yourself, outside of yourself. If not, you are just limited to yourself and what you can do, to your limited means. And your limited means can't do anything against this whole big old world. You didn't create the sky. You didn't put the clouds. You didn't get a shovel and dig not one mountain. No man did. So you got to believe that there is something out there that is greater than ourselves. And like I say, faith allows you to agree and believe in something that's greater than yourself. Preferably a power that is for you, that supports you, that's greater than yourself. And as well as there's a power that's greater than you that is against you. But you got to know that that there is some power, that there is a higher power that stands for you and not against you. Love is one of those powers. And when it's genuine and it comes from the source, our God, it covers a multitude of sin. There's nothing that can penetrate or kill love. Because when it's genuine, it can't be taken away. When you really, truly love somebody, you can't stop loving them. Because love doesn't die. Just like the Spirit, love doesn't die. So we need to make sure that we are operating in love in order to overcome. And if we're operating in love, we're operating in God. Because God is love. That's the power, the energy that He emanates from Him. Now, yeah, there's some tough love. And there are some things that's happening in the world that they blaming God for, but God didn't have nothing to do with it. He allowed some things to happen, but He didn't put nothing in there. Man does certain things and finds himself in situations. You remember the story about Frankenstein? A lot of that's going, we are building creatures and things and forces that we're supposed to try to control or do, but they getting so big that they controlling us. The pandemic, that was a man-made pandemic. That was a man-made evil demonic force against humankind because there was a fear that there was getting to be too many. There's more people than there's food. So you got panic, you got fear, you got genocide on our community. You got genocide on the people. So man is making these things, aligning with demonic forces, and people are dying. That's what the pandemic was. We had a whole lot of lies and stuff come out of that. I ain't gonna say too much because they're gonna want to shut me down. That's not saying that they part of it. That's not saying that they not part of it. But I'm just saying the pandemic was man-made. That's spiritual warfare. That's somebody sitting somewhere thinking negatively to do something to a multitude of people that's not for the people. That's spiritual warfare. That's demonic forces. Let me try to kind of explain what the spiritual forces are. A spiritual force is a non-physical or a supernatural entity which influences believed are to impact the human realm either positively or negatively. That's what a spiritual force is. It's generally characterized as either divine or demonic, representing a battle between good and evil in the spiritual realm that affects people's lives. So whether you believe in spiritual warfare or not, it affects people's lives. I can give you two types. Like I say, the divine forces. They include the angels, the Spirit of God, other spiritual beings, influences sent by God to guide, the prophets, the evangelists, to protect and encourage believers. Then you have the demonic forces. That includes Satan and anybody that's aimed to do evil or commit erroneous things against, erroneous forces against people who are trying to live a righteous life. Demonic forces come against those who are trying to do what's right. They come to oppress and deceive those who are integral or trying to the best of their ability to be integral. Demonic forces lead people away from God. Church hurt is a demonic force that comes to harm the spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being of an individual. Now, church hurt is inside the individual. It's what the individual holds within themselves. It's not nothing against whatever person in the church or entity or clergy in the church, because church hurt is personalized. It's in you. It's what you hold inside yourself. Anything that you hold inside yourself and you step away from God, that don't have nothing to do with, where the force or the energy might have come from. That's called holding grudges. That's why God say be quick to forgive. Because if you're not quick to forgive, you're going to hold stuff on the inside of you that's going to pull you away from God, because, God, he loves forgiveness. He can't forgive you if you ain't forgiving everybody else. So if you have unforgiveness in your heart, you are pulling your own self away from God. So demonic forces come to separate us from God. Any demonic force that comes to deceive us, to cause separation from God, that spiritual warfare, it's not the enemy or the demonic force fault. It's our fault for allowing it to happen, for allowing, things to hold on to things, for, to hold on to hurts when we need to let it go, because if we don't let it go, we can't be with God. It makes us angry. We get mad with God. A lot of loved ones pass on and we get mad, because we understand that God has life and death, the power of life and death in his hand. And we believe in our mind that God did this or that God caused this. The scripture says no man know the day nor the hour. But because that day or that hour came, we blame God because we're so entitled. We're so spoiled. And we think that it shouldn't happen, and God caused this and God did this. Everybody got their own destiny. Everybody got their own, cross to bear. If it's that person's time, it's that person's time. There's nothing we can do about it. That was created before the foundations of the world, when we wasn't even there. So how we going to blame or judge God? Not realizing that we have a expiration date as well. We don't even know our time or hour. But we want to blame God for everything. It's time out for blaming God for everything. And we want to blame the enemy for everything. Sometimes the enemy ain't doing nothing but sitting back getting the glory that we're giving him, because we blaming everything on him. And he, half the time, he ain't even think about it. He didn't even think to do it, but he thanking you for giving him the glory, for teaching him how to get under your skin. Because when he ain't thinking about nothing and he need to think about something, he gonna remember, and he gonna go and do that thing that you gave him glory for, because he knows that they gets under your skin. It's like when you have a sibling and they learn certain things annoy you. When they want to annoy you again, they're gonna go back to those same tactics until you're not annoyed anymore, until you stop allowing it to annoy you. That's what we got to get to. We got to go get so wrapped up in God, prayed up in God, which the other point we was coming to, strengthen our spirit, which means we need to stay in the Word and know what God is doing, align our spirit with God. That way we ain't paying attention to the enemy. Talking about the enemy, yeah, he doing the stuff and we're allowing it. If we wrapped up in God, we know how to, just like bumper cars, we know how to bump it off. We know how to do things, when he calls them hindering spirits, we know how not to get tangled up in them. Them entanglements. We know how not to get entangled in stuff that's going to hinder us, that's going to cause bondage. And we know how not to get entangled in those mindsets. That when your mind is bound, the rest of your body is bound. The rest of your life is bound. We know how to stay away from stuff like that. When we strengthen the spirit, when we stay, looking at life, studying life, the book of life, the Bible, the Word of God, we stay studying that and less studying demonic forces and how to get over and manipulate on people, we be much better for it. And then that last point was discerning the spirit and having self-awareness. Discerning the spirits that's coming towards us. All spirits ain't for us. There are some people that look like they're in support of us, but they're against us. There are some people that's just holding us just to keep us close, just to keep us under their wing so that they can manipulate and use us, but they're not in support of us to help us grow or help us prosper, because we can only grow as high as our lid. Half the time, like I say, John C. Maxwell put that quote out there best. We can grow only as high as our lid, which means your leader is your lid. However high your leader is, that's how high you can grow. And if you're not in a position where you can push your leader higher, you're never going to get any higher than you are. And if you're in a position with a leader that is not going any higher, you're never going to get any higher than you are. Some of us are in positions where our leader is pushing us down because they don't have it in them to go any higher or anywhere that they are, higher than they are. So we are stuck being pushed down to where we bottom out. But then, like I say, if you get with God and strengthen your spirit, you might just be able to push your leader higher. Which means as you pushing, as long as you stay there pushing, going higher, you going higher as they go higher. So make sure we know the company that we keep. Make sure we are, or they are in support of us as we are in support of them. Make sure we are aligned for the same purpose and the same cause. Make sure that we are with people that want us to prosper as much as they prosper or as they prosper. Sometimes you're just with people that want to prosper, but they prosper off your back. They don't want to put the work in. They done got tired and they don't want to do the work, but they got you, the mule, to go out and do the work for them so that they can prosper. And are you benefiting? Are you benefiting in a way that, you're prospering, that you're comfortable? Or are you slaving? I always talk about what's the difference between a slave and a servant. A servant wants to do what he is doing. he or she is doing. A slave don't. A slave is obligated to do it just to keep the means and their welfare. When you do stuff because you want to do it, that's freedom. Because you enjoy doing it, that's freedom. People who have a job are not free because they get up, they clock in, they go to work, they rush into work on somebody else's time schedule to where they don't enjoy life. They on somebody else's time all the time. But somebody who's an independent contractor or somebody who is doing what they love to do, they're free even though they go to work and do what they do, as long as it's lining up with their heart, their destiny, what they love to do. I love what I do. I do. So when you are, I want to say transitioning, you'll transition into some place that has liberty, where you're valued, and there's, I ain't gonna say no demonic force, but you don't experience as much demonic force, because where there's liberty, God, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's liberty. And where there's liberty, that's God leading you to another place, to another level or whatever. So wherever the liberty is, you following the liberty, that means you're following God. So as I'm following God, following the liberty, you're coming up out of things, you're transitioning, you're coming up out of bondages, your mental mindsets are being broken. So, and as you finally get over there to that place, then we got to throw another thing, because cause and effect. Because once you're out of that bondage and you're in that place, then here comes the enemy and the demonic forces, and they got to put some bondages on you. So that's when things start clanking down on you again, because guess what? You are getting ready to go to another level. The enemy comes to show up to promote you. So when you get to a place and you got a little breathing room and you don't learn something, you're at the liberty and you're gaining and you're prospering. Trust and believe the bondages got to come. Because I always talk about the butterfly, the cocoon. As a kid, you see the cocoon and you want to cut the cocoon open and release the butterfly, but you will kill the butterfly or cripple the butterfly. Because the cocoon is a struggle, it hurts. And you don't want to see nobody struggle and hurt. But if you take them out of that struggle and that hurt, you're going to kill them. They're never going to be to the level that they were created to be. So as I'm coming out of bondage and going into liberty, like I say, there's going to be some strains. Another cocoon is going to have to be created to where I got to wrestle and struggle and get out of that. That's what spiritual warfare is for. That's what it comes to do, is to cause you to grow. You can't run from it. You can run from it all day long, but you'll never get anywhere. You'll never be able to do anything. So if you run from it, instead of tackle it, confront it head on, say, okay, what am I to learn from this today? What's going on here today? What am I doing here? What am I chasing? What am I going at? Well, how am I? Because what you do is you fight to get your liberty back. When you fight and align yourself with the thing that you're supposed to learn, it gives you liberty. And once you get that liberty, then you're able to find yourself flowing out of them bondages into another area, where then again you're gonna find chains put on you, bondages, because those chains put on you, as you get through that struggle, you're gonna learn another mindset. It's called building skills building. It's building your character, it's building your integrity, it's building your faith, it's teaching you something, because you got to learn how to do certain things to get out of certain ways in order to be able to get away from those bondages. And as you get away from those bondages, you become a better person. Self-awareness. You got to know what you're capable of, be it good for good and for evil. You got to know what triggers you. You got to know where your triggers are. You got to know who triggers you, what triggers you. Places trigger you, people, place, and things. You got to know your triggers all the way around. Some people can just walk up to you and all of a sudden change your spirit, change your day, just because you've seen them and they remind you of some trauma or something back in the day. Ladies, your ex can pass by with his new girlfriend, and some of y'all who ain't got over it, it can be triggered because he look like he doing better than he was with you. You still ain't over that thing. That thing is still deep set in you. You looking at this ex-lover, this old flame you had, and because you see them with a smile on their face, it instantly gives you negative energy, negative vibes inside your soul because you saw them smiling, and they ain't supposed to be smiling since they left you. No, you're not done with it. That's spiritual warfare. That's still sitting on the inside of your soul, keeping you out of the prosperity and the things of God. Let it go. You gotta let stuff go in order to flow. You can't flow hanging on to stuff. You can't flow. That is spiritual warfare coming to set you back. That is spiritual warfare. The enemy is using certain things, certain devices, certain forces to hold you back and keep you from stuff. Social anxieties. A lot of people got social anxieties because of the spiritual forces. People getting bullied. People, every time they step out, every time I step out, I'm in the middle of gossip. I done something and I ain't even been nowhere, done nothing. Everything always falls on me. I'm comfortable in my house. I'm comfortable in my home. I can go around the world sitting right here in this chair and ain't gotta buy a plane ticket or do nothing. I'm comfortable. But certain people say that I'm not living life, that I'm on the clearance rack. But I'm just saying there are people that do certain things to cause you to stay in certain places so that they don't have to deal with you. That's spiritual warfare. If they ain't got to deal with you, you making it easy for them. Because maybe they don't want to deal with you because you intimidate them. Some people just want to wipe the smile off of your face simply because they are miserable on the inside of them. Like I say, spiritual warfare is war that happens at the spirit level, in the spirit realm. It's emotional. It's sexual. It's anything of the spirit. Spiritual warfare is designed to kill the spirit, but only God can kill the spirit. It can make you depressed. It can make you anxious. It can make you perceive life and respond to life in certain ways that is demonic and not divine. Spiritual warfare, like I said, just comes to kill your spirit. So are you living life aligning with life, healthy, spiritually and physically? That's what you need to find out. Are you aligning spiritually and physically in life? And like I said, Ephesians 6 is where we are because, Ephesians 6 talks about the full armor. When you're in a battle, when the soldier goes to war, he don't put on jeans and tennis shoes. He has certain armor that he has to put on. Armor is tough. It's tough skin. It's metal. We talk about physical metal, what the soldiers wear. It's metal. It's barbed wire. It's twine. There's different swords. There's tools and things that are needed to fight a physical battle. Well, our armor in our spiritual battle should be just as tough. The armor, like I said, we're going to get down there. It talks about the breastplate of righteousness. It talks about, our sword and our helmet and our shoes, shod with the gospel of peace. It should be as tough as the armor that is on a physical soldier. So I want to say too, a lot of us is broken down. The soldier is broken, even though that they got to put on this armor. You can't be privileged to wait until you get it all together. Most of us have to go through life fighting a spiritual battle as we're wounded. A lot of us have experienced traumatic experiences in our life. A lot of us has experienced abuse, be it verbal, emotional, sexual, physical. Abuse is a big tool that the enemy uses because abuse not only hurts the physical, but it also hurts the spiritual. For example, I was sexually molested for 14 years of my life. And for a long time, I looked at life through those shattered lenses, that broken heart. Perceive, I ain't gonna say afraid, but not wanting to trust anybody or deal with anybody because I looked at it from that vantage point. People hurt people is what I looked at. But I was able to get into school. Like I said, I started this to learn about me because I didn't have enough money to go to a therapist, and I didn't have no insurance and everything to go to a therapist to find out what's going, why did, the world or God allow this to happen to me and all this kind of stuff. And I found enough information that to heal me, and then I learned that I could take this and heal, help heal others that don't have the money or like I didn't. So it became my ministry. God gave it to me as my ministry to become a therapist intern. That's where I sit right now. But there's a lot of people that's dealing with trauma, sexual abuse, male and female. A lot of this LGBT some of it is because it was put on them. Somebody abused them as a child and it messed up their psyche. And for whatever reason, they chose to be that way. Then you got some that say they born that way. Well, I agree, because science teaches us that we are born, even the Bible, we are born male and female. The only difference between us is that one has a womb and the other one doesn't. Science teaches us that our DNA has, our hormones rather have, each of us have testosterone running, which is the male hormone, and we also have estrogen, which is the female hormone. But, the Bible teaches about the power of choice, where you get to choose in life the things you want. That's what we found between the tree of knowledge and the tree of life, is you have the power of choice. Adam had the power to choose between obeying God and leaving the tree of knowledge alone and going to God for his knowledge, or he could, and just stay with the tree of life, or he could pull off the tree of knowledge and lean to his own understanding and do what he wanted to do for himself. And we all know the story. Adam chose to get with his wife, who brought it to him, and they ate together. Because had Eve ate before giving to Adam, we would have had a Jezebel in the Garden of Eden. And Jezebel wouldn't have shared anything with anybody. Eve wouldn't have shared anything with Adam. Matter of fact, she would have made Adam her servant, her slave, if she would have got the evil before he did. But we have the Romeo and Juliet scenario where they took of the knowledge, the fruit, together. So that's a lot of misconstrued. They want to put some clarity on that. Had one taken it before the other would have been a slave to the other. So they took it together. They made decision together. That's where you get that from. It's called the jump in the broom together or whatever. But so when we have that, we have people who get into relationships and they don't understand the other individual. They don't understand the abuse that the other individual has gone through, and they take it personal, and it eventually causes division in the relationship. I have a client right now that's going through a similar situation like that. She just got into a relationship after being through a traumatic experience in her childhood that she hasn't gotten over really. And this individual that she has brought into her life doesn't understand the extent of the trauma that she has gone through. And because certain things aren't able to take place because she's triggered or don't feel comfortable, the individual is beginning to think that it's all him, and maybe it's something wrong with him, so he's doing certain things and buying certain chemicals and all of these other things, trying to, I guess, improve his situation or his lot. But it really has nothing to do with him. It's all in her mindset about what happened in her life, the trauma in her life. A lot of us aren't with anybody because, you know, people don't understand the trauma. Like, that's one of the reasons why I'm comfortable being by myself, is because I ain't found nobody to understand what I've been through either. I've been in a marriage. I've been married 20 years and then got divorced. But in that marriage, it really wasn't a marriage. It was, you know, of convenience. I mean, we had fun. We loved each other, you know, like high school type of stuff. There was really no bonding, really, you know, bonding enough to bring about three beautiful children. You know, it was just the space to have children, I want to say. Had my children, tied my tubes up, you know, I'm good. Didn't need that marriage anymore, because there was no bondage. There was no, I mean, binding. There was no nurture, no nothing to, what else was it for? There was nothing else for it to, I mean, and he kept doing, he needed to grow up, I needed to grow up. So in growing up, we grew apart, because I was able to grow up and he wanted to stay in where he was, you know, what he was doing. So even to this day, he's still in that mindset, and I'm totally different from what I was before. But like I said, we get with people that don't understand where we come from or our childhood, you know, because coming out of a family is one thing, but coming out of a family and abuse, that's something totally different. Because when you coming out of that family as an abused child, you don't look at the world the way every other person looks at it. You look at it from a vantage point of hurt, misery, pain, rejection. You look at it in the sense that, you know, there are people out here that want to hurt me. There are people out here that do not support me, that don't want to do me any good. You know, I don't want to come across that anymore. So I'm comfortable to get up, perform, and come home, because there's nobody that understands the depths of what I've come from, the abuse that of what I've come from. I mean, being sexually abused means that it started at the age of 2. It means that some grown individual violated my innocence, stole my innocence from me. So I never really had any innocence. I've always had to look at people as, you know, they coming to do something to me or get something from me. So I don't put myself in too many positions or too many environments where I can be the person that they can come get stuff from or do stuff to. So why would I want to marry or be in a situation where I have no peace, I have no refuge? I'm dealing with somebody like that all the time. As a single woman, I can go out, engage, and then I have my refuge. I can come home in my refuge. So there are people that, you know, want to be, you know, by themselves because of their childhood experience. Then, you know, I've had dealings with men who have been sexually abused by other men, and I'm not saying one hurt is worse than the other, but I've witnessed the damning effects of that. One was a leader in the church, or I won't say trying to be a leader in the church, because when you're damaged like that, you can't be a leader trying to lead others and you're still dealing with the pain of, you know, what you've been through, what you've gone through. You haven't worked it out. You know, you haven't done the steps, you haven't grown, you haven't gone through the therapy and everything that I've gone through. You know, you're still dealing with, why did this happen to me? You're still feeling the effects of why did this happen to me. So you can't be a leader if you ain't led your own self out. Or you can't deliver nobody out of Egypt if you still stand in Egypt. What you gonna do, stand there at the gate and tell them to go? Or whatever, and you standing there, yeah, you may get some gung-ho that might do that, but everybody's not going to do that. You know, people they follow by example. And if you're not being the example, then they're not going to follow you. So, like I said, you know, in the faith, there was a man that was molested by another man when he was elementary. and you could see the anger, and you could feel the tension when you engage with him. And women, you know, you really feel it because he was a womanizer. You know, he would do whatever he got to do to make a woman feel good, sound good, whatever, to get whatever he wanted out of her. But he hated women. I don't know if that had something to do with his mother, which I'm pretty sure it did, but he hated women. Even though he, you know, put up the persona of the married man and all that kind of stuff, he treated his wife bad. Because he himself felt bad. You know, and the Bible even says something to the effect, when a man beats on his wife, he's beating on himself. So he really discounted women. He hated women because of what this man did to him when he was in elementary. And it really messes up his psyche. So coming out, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, all come out to be homosexual or anything like that, but I'm saying this individual, no, he didn't come out to be homosexual, but he was really mean to women. He used them like either a piece of meat or just to get money out of them. Those he couldn't use as a piece of meat and, you know, get in the bed with, you know, because in his mind, you get in the bed with a woman, then you gonna get more out of her, you know, make her feel all warm and fuzzy inside. You gonna get, you know, all in her bank account, the bottom of her Coach purse too. But those he couldn't get in the bed, you know, he would have to make up all kind of excuses and lies and all kind of situations and drama. Always something had to be going on for him to get money, you know, sent to him via Cash App or out of her pocketbook. So he never bonded with anybody because he didn't know himself. Like I said, this is all because in his childhood trauma, another male individual decided to be selfish and take on what they wanted to do with this young man, with this little boy at that time. During elementary, just totally wrecked that young man's life. Wrecked his elementary because he got up and went to school like everybody else did. But he went to school knowing something that a lot of them elementary students didn't know. I ain't gonna say all of them because he ain't the only one that it happened to. But a lot of them didn't know. So he got to see, it was tasted of the fruit that a lot of them didn't taste. Just like as I was going to school, I'm filling out and, you know, because, you know, sex makes a woman change or whatever. You know, my body started filling out, you know, looking like more womanly, all in elementary and all that. So I have tasted of a fruit that a lot of them other ones hadn't tasted. And because I look different and sound different, and I'm hiding because I didn't want nobody to know. I felt so dirty. I didn't want nobody to know my secret. So I kind of stayed to myself. Or when we played on team play, you know, people really didn't know me. So I was the last to pick, if they picked me at all. Sometimes I just was the one to go over here because the team was even, you know, kind of thing. So when you go through life like that, go through experience like that, it don't just stop there. It goes all off into your adulthood. You at some point in time got to confront that thing and challenge that thing. Me, I've gotten comfortable. I used to didn't like being by myself, but now I done got so comfortable being by myself. I like, you know, don't have to answer to nobody. You know, I do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it. And I'm so independent. And I love the woman that I am today. You know, so I've learned me. I know what I like. I know my triggers. I know what I'm not going to, I know what I'm going to stand for. I know what I'm not going to stand for. You know, I've learned how to raise my children, you know, as their mother, but still allow them to be their own individual self. You know, I don't have to live vicariously through my children. I live vicariously through myself, through my own life. I get up and I do what I love to do every day. My job is my heart, my purpose. You know, I'm a mental health therapist intern. I'm finally made it here, and I'm enjoying every bit of the road because it's what I believe is connected to my purpose. I'm aligning with what God wants me to do. So my spiritual warfare was in trying to keep me from getting here. But everything that God put in me is like my ministry. It's like it was the catapult for my purpose, for me being here. So the people that I gravitate are people that have been abused, you know, go through drug addiction, 30 years clean, you know, all of that. What, you know, so I'm able to speak on it from an experience standpoint more so than from a textbook standpoint, if that makes sense. So this ain't something I had to study from a book or I had to learn from that. Now from the book I had to learn what the approaches was and, you know, put the scientific and terminologies on it. But I didn't have to learn everything from a book. It's what God created in me. It's what he, you know, what was put in me. So I understand now what I went through, why I went through. And it's beauty for ashes because I'm able to take what God, what was allowed to happen in my life and be able to be a blessing and cause other people's lives to come out of the same bondages that I was in. So that's spiritual warfare. Your spiritual warfare may not be just for you. Your spiritual warfare may be so that you can get the tools and the education and the experience that you need to be able to come out and deliver others. Moses, he was placed in Egypt. He was raised in Egypt. You know, his mother had to put him in a basket and he was picked up by Pharaoh's daughter to be in that aspect. So he had raised as a baby in Egypt, you know, Pharaoh's grandson, basically, to be raised in that territory in order to be put in a position where he had to, you know, be gone off because he had murdered one of the Egyptians, to only come back and deliver him, to deliver the people, the Hebrew, the Israelites out of there. And he couldn't deliver them out of there if he didn't know their culture. So the thing that you're going through, the spiritual warfare that you're going through, is the culture that you have to learn in order to be able to deliver the people. It might not just be for you. First, you got to get delivered yourself. And how you get delivered may not be what you think it's going to be. Moses was delivered out of Egypt by killing an Egyptian. He didn't feel it was right. He knew he was a Hebrew. And his instincts, his DNA, I want to say, took over him. And that's how he was delivered out of that. Sometimes you're going to get delivered out of some situations and it ain't going to be no celebration. Sometimes the enemy going to cause something to happen. Things going to get stirred up. And you're going to be delivered out of that situation in a adverse manner. I've been in some situations and companies and everything, and companies have gone down. I ain't had nothing to do with nothing. And finding myself 1 minute with a job and the next minute not. So when you get the access or get the lesson or learn the lesson that you are supposed to learn, it may not be a celebration. It may not be a graduation ceremony. It may be a demonic force pushing you into your next level, pushing you out and into your next greatness. Something may happen to go forward. Something may happen to take place that causes you to leave abruptly or be released abruptly That's spiritual warfare. When the soldiers get through taking over a country, sometimes it ain't always a celebration. Sometimes it's the beginning of battling in the next country. We seem to think that we looking for the celebration to take place, and we find ourselves constantly fighting to where we don't even realize that we're going from glory to glory to glory. That's what this is all about. Is you keep going from glory to glory to glory. If you got to always take time to celebrate, that's how you get caught up in procrastination. That's how you get stuck. That's how it takes, when you get lazy to the point it takes you a minute to get back out there. Once, you hinder productivity. You hinder the force. Electricity, when you plug in, as long as it's going, it's a continuous force. But the moment you take out to, celebrate or take a night's sleep or whatever, you got to plug in. And sometimes some of us don't plug right back in. Distractions happen, and we find ourselves in things, and time goes by, and we never get up and do the thing that we said we can do. Before you know it, 10, 20 years done pass by, and maybe we feel like, okay, we too old to do it. We too old to go back to college and get that degree and start that business that we want to do. You got to keep moving forward. In spiritual warfare, you have to keep moving forward. A lot of this, like I say, is linked in our family, in our childhood, in our past, with our mother and our father. We talked about that last week. Honor your mother and father, which is the first commandment with promise. That's what we were going to start at this week. It's with promise. Because the promise is that God, we the seed of Abraham. Everything, that he promised Abraham is what is promised, is given to us. We are the inheritance. So as long as we're following and being obedient to God's word, we are going to receive the inheritance of Abraham that was given to him, because we're his seed. He said, you ain't going to be able to count the sand. We're part of that. The promise. If you want the promise, you got to be obedient. It begins with honoring your mother and father. That crafts you. That, tells what character you have. If you respect your mother and father, people respect you. But if people see that you don't even respect your mother and father, you're going to get a lot of rejection. You're going to get a lot of flack. You're going to get a lot of people coming at you. You're going to get a whole lot of disrespect. Because you're not even giving respect yourself. You're not giving your honor and your mother and father to the very ones that were the portal to put you into this earth. God created you, but he used two individuals to transition you into the physical realm. God created, you are a thought in God's mind that he placed in two individuals, and you can't even honor those two individuals. You can't honor God. No, we can't pick and choose our mother and our father. But that's how we supposed to be. We ain't supposed to be able to pick and choose who we honor in the world. There are some people we think that are not lovable or whatever. But who's to say somebody's not lovable? That's respect to a person. There's some that, are hard to love. There are some, we got to give a little extra or whatever. But everybody deserves love that has the breath of God in their body. I don't care what they're doing. Their trauma just might be a little bit more than yours that they're working with to deal with. Not making no excuses for anybody. But just as bad as you were in the world, they have that same grace. So like I say, spiritual warfare begins with us. It begins at home. It begins in how we treat those that are around us. We honor our mother and father. Naturally, we're going to honor our siblings. how we conduct ourselves in the home. It's like a candle that illuminates the room. So we honor, we promise, and when we start there, we get the promises of God, which is everything that He promised and gave to Abraham. Let's take on one more. That it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth. A lot of these people, I ain't gonna say the ones in pandemic, but a lot of people today, the sizes, the caskets come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. And a lot of young people that die don't respect their mother and father. They don't honor their mother and father. And they find themselves gone before their time. I ain't gonna say before their time, because I say no man knows the day nor the hour. But it seems that if, God is the only one that can redeem the time. That's why it says no man knows the day nor the hour, because God is the one who chooses the hour. He knows what day and hour He wants for us to expire from this earth. But we can ask God for grace, for more time, and He can give us. He don't have He's eternity. I don't believe God has a set day and time in His mind for us. It all depends on how we respond to Him, how we acted. As long as He can see hope and faith in us, I believe God keeps us living. But when He can't see no hope and faith in us, I believe that's when, God don't waste His breath. He don't waste His time. So as long as we are honoring our mother and our father, as long as we are honoring God, it's well with us. And we live long on the earth. As long as we doing the commandments of God, loving God, discipline ourselves, doing what God say do, we live well on the earth. And we live long on the earth. But the moment there's no hope for us, the moment we are just all out there doing what we want to do, leaning to our own understanding, causing hell, harm, and damnation to other people, a menace to society, when we become like that, I believe He puts an expiration date on it. Because life is living. It doesn't die. Only God has the power of death, of the spirit. So, how we come out the chute, I want to say, how we come out of the home, our mindset, that's the lenses or the perception that we have when we are dealing with spiritual warfare in the community. If we all messed up and miserable, then we're going to come out with a mindset that's deal with emotional abuse, hurt. We got to be able to take the time to, study ourselves, to show ourselves approved. We got to be able to take the time to get to know us, to work that stuff out before we go out and bleed on somebody else. It's another reason why a lot of people stay to themselves, social anxiety, is because, they don't want to bleed on nobody else. They don't want to, cause any hurt, harm, or danger to anybody else based on their trauma and their experience or whatever. Like I said, I'm happy in my home. I'm happy. I go out, do what I want to do, and I ain't got to bring nobody back here. Me and my daughter, when she's home, because she's living her life too, we're happy. And some people see that that's not good. There's more life to it, but I have life. I have it now more abundantly than I did before. And I'm good with that. As far as bleeding on anybody, I don't see where I bleed on anybody because, like I said, I've done the work. I've gone to one of the most beautiful therapists. She always used to say she was ugly, but I thought she was one of the most beautiful women in the world who went home recently, not long ago. But she was a doctor in her field. I thought she had a beautiful spirit, and she had been hurt herself. And for her to come out and be able to help me, it led me to want to be just like her. And that's the reason why I had made the decision. I said, I'm going to be a therapist just like her. And I began the journey from that point because I wanted to have a beautiful spirit like she did. And that's where that all began. But I don't believe I'm bleeding on anybody. Some people say I'm bleeding on them because I don't have nobody. And, you know, there are some. One person told me that I just done gave up on men. That don't mean I'm with women either. But I wouldn't say I gave up on men. I don't think about them. There ain't nothing they can do for me that God ain't doing for me, that I want done. Now, it was said across the table that I need certain things, but if I needed that bad, it'd be more safe to go to one of them stores. Nowadays, I hear they got them in more than 3 speeds. But I am happy. My soul is happy. My heart is happy. As soon as my daughter gets, you know, what she gonna do, and get mobile, where I ain't gotta be, you know, making sure she get home safe and all that kind of stuff, I'm gonna worry about traveling. Think about traveling, seeing things that I've always wanted to see. I can do that. You know, I ain't gotta answer to nobody or whatever. But and there's gonna be some spiritual warfare with that too. But as long as you come from a good place in you, and you know who you are, and you know what you're going to stand for, and what you're not going to stand for, you can take on the battle. You know, you can pick and choose your battles. And there are some battles that I don't want to deal with. There's some battles that what's the point? And then there are some battles that, I'm going to go head in for. Because, you know, if I see that the end result, there's a spoil at the end result, that it's going to better something or a community or a plot, I'm an advocate. I'm going to go head in. But I don't waste my time. I don't waste my life. I don't waste my breath. And that's what a lot of people do that are having spiritual warfare, is because they fighting battles that ain't even theirs. They fighting battles that ain't even giving them a spoil or anything that is worth having. It's just getting energy, some exercise, some adrenaline rush, because they ain't got nothing else better to do in life, I guess. You know, I learned to pace myself. You know, I say it all the time, I got more years behind me now than I got before me. And I intend to enjoy these years, because I finally raised all my children. I don't have children anymore. I got grown folk. And I was able to raise my children. My daughter, she graduated. She at work now. But as soon as she figure out what she going to do and how she going to do it, and get her positioned in her space and in her life to get her, you know, so she can transition up the ladder that she chooses to go, I'm going to do me. I'm going to live. I'm not going to be everybody's doll that everybody come pulling on. And, you know, everybody's servant, the Messiah effect or whatever. I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to enjoy me. So, once again, we done gone over an hour, and I try to keep these shorter, around an hour. Dealing with spiritual warfare. A lot of people are dealing with spiritual warfare, coming through hurt, heartbreak, shattered lenses, and they're living life alone because people don't understand what they've gone through. Like I say, don't nobody understand what I've gone through and what I've come out of. Therefore, I'm not going to be in a situation to where I'm going to be fighting and arguing every day, where I'm triggered because somebody doesn't understand. A lot of men, they're saying, is because they've been touched, they've been hurt. You know, it's coming out with this LGBTQIA and all these different pansexual, gay, bisexual, all these different, it's just growing. You know, it's a great falling away. But that's because a lot of men have been hurt. We don't look at men like that. Men can be hurt too. You know, we got a lot coming out talking about they've been sexually abused, Mr. Perry and a lot of them, and then we got a lot, that's being exposed of abusing young boys and some of them lying and some of them saying they did it. And, we got right now in social media, we got one that's being accused of all kind of stuff with young boys and racketeering and human trafficking and all these other charges and all this kind of stuff. So we don't seem to look at that when we hurt our men, we hurt our generation, we hurt our society. They are our strength. So that's the demonic force. The spiritual warfare is attacking the strength. The men, they represent strength. They represent the provider, in God's eyes, let's just say that. They represent the strength of the nation, the provider, the provision. They're supposed to provide for the women and children or whatever. And when we mess with their manhood or we take them down or we always accusing them or keeping them out the house, you got these women that, they want to be there with them long enough to get the child, and then they treat them like mess and use the child as a pawn and, to get more money, and it's just a mess. That's that Jezebel spirit that come out then. But when we are attacking our men, we are attacking the strength of our nation. That's why I'm an advocate against that. I can't stand that's a trigger for me. I can't stand when I see a woman that was enough and sensual enough to go down and lay down with this man to get this child, but then she want to treat him like mess afterwards. You got to realize, take yourself out the equation. That child still got to have a relationship with that father. And then, like I said, there are some fathers that's doing that to the women too, But I'm just saying, it's not gender specific. It's a spirit that's coming against and causing division, a demonic force, a spiritual warfare that's coming against another spirit, causing division and causing strife in order to keep us apart. Holiness means set apart. That don't mean pulling us away from each other. That means we operate in a way that is righteous. We do right by others. That which we want to have done to us. Because when we do these things, do we realize that that's the reason why life is coming at us the way it's coming at us? Because if we putting forth out evil, that's what we attract back to us. Is evil. If you put forth a positive energy, that's what you get back. And a lot of people say, no, that's not right, that's not true, or whatever. Put forth enough positive energy to see that it's true. If you've been doing hell and evil and negative all your life, and you want to put out maybe a week worth of positive energy, and you don't see nothing come to pass, naturally you're not going to. You done put out there so much hell that's coming to pass right now that you got to get past the hell that you put out there. You got to change the energy in the atmosphere, which means you can't be good a couple of days when you've been hellish all your life. You got to just keep putting it out there, persuading. You got to keep being led. You got to keep just pounding the pavement. Keep putting it out there until you change your energy, until you change your atmosphere, until it manifests what you want it to manifest. Because true enough, whether you believe it or not, you are manifesting the energy that you want manifested right now. All that hell that's coming into your life, them were seeds you planted back there towards somebody else, in somebody else's life. So now it's manifested in your life. If you want good and prosperity to manifest in your life, then those are the seeds that you need to plant. Those are the seeds that you need to sow. That's the energy that you need to bring forth, to give forth. Change your mindset. When you change your mindset, you'll change your heart. Your heart is the ground, it's the foundation. Out of the mouth, the heart speaks. So when you start bringing stuff out of your heart that's good and genuine and loving towards people, then that's the energy that you're going to, present to yourself, that you're going to manifest, bring forth to yourself. Like I say, we're going to stop there. We're going to go into number 4 next week, because number 4 is a lot. I think we probably only going to be in number 4 next week, because, when we talk about our fathers provoking not our children to wrath, that's a whole lot. That's a whole lot in spiritual warfare, because a lot of spiritual warfare has got to deal with the fathers not being in the home, or what the fathers did. It's not just the fathers either, it's the mothers too. What they did or didn't do, the abuse that they put on their children, that they raised their children up in. That garden of abuse that they had to come out of and be raised up in to finally be out on their own. What kind of mindset do you think they got? What kind of psychology do you think they see? What's going on in their life? What kind of thoughts do you think, or what kind of comprehension do you think they have coming out of a ground or a soil like that? That'd probably be a whole topic next week, about what's been planted inside of us, what the fathers and the mothers of our world have planted inside us. And we gotta, yes, generational curses, traditional, all that maybe has been planted in them, but we have the power to break the yoke. It starts in us. We can break whatever yoke in us. We don't have to keep passing on bad stuff to our children. I break generational curses in my household, in my life. I've broken some generational cords, some generational strongholds in my life. You don't have to keep living the same status quo, because that's in your DNA, or mama did it, or daddy did it, or grandma, great-grandma, great-granddaddy way down the way did it. You can break the curse. You can break that demonic force. Don't give it no power in your life. That's how you shrink the spiritual warfare that you go through in life. You don't have to deal with the same devil that your daddy dealt with. You don't have to deal with the same demons that your mama dealt with. If you learn how to break the cord, break the force. When that enemy comes up to you, don't respond to it the same way that they did. You respond differently. You learn differently. You do something different. Just like your daddy, we got to stop saying that. Just like your mama, we got to stop saying that. We got to let these children grow up and be who they was destined to become, without that stigma over their head that they supposed to be something like they saw that they don't want to be. They don't want to be like that drunk like their daddy was. They don't want to be that Rolling Stone or that prostitute on the pole like their mama was. They don't want to be that, so stop putting that on them. Stop giving them that idea. Stop creating that mindset for them. Start creating a mindset that they can be anything that they want to be. Whatever God chooses them to be, whatever is planted on the inside of them. Just because we see a basketball player or a football player in our children, let them decide what they want to be. Let them go to God and see what they want to be. Let it manifest out of them what they want to be, not what we want to put on our children. We create spiritual warfare in our household because we put stamps and stimulants on things that's what we want. But do we go to God? Do we seek God? Is that what He wants? Is that the destiny that is planned? Because only what gonna happen is the destiny that God has for them. That's the one that's gonna manifest. That's the one that He gonna say, "Good and well done, thou faithful servant." So if we putting on them a destiny that is not aligned with God, we are hindering. We're having them go around Mount Sinai. We're placing them in places that wasn't ordained for them to be in. We making it hard on they walk in their spiritual walk than they were ordained to be. Because we placing our spirit, our spin on it, and not what God wants. Did we go to God and say, okay, Lord, lead me how to raise your vessel? Did we give them back to God for real? Or was that just a ceremony where we put some oil on the baby head and sprinkle some water? Like I say, it's already going to be too long. I will get pumped up. But yeah, next week we're going to be in a good topic. I'm going to say a good topic, a deep topic, where we're going to talk about fathers provoking their children. We always talk about, teach our children, honor your mother and your father before it's right in the Lord. We don't ever get down to where it's talking about the fathers. Where it's talking about don't provoke your children to wrath. We don't get to that part. God forbid the parents ever do anything wrong. No, we don't want the children bringing that verse back to us, because we're not perfect either. Are we honoring our mother and father as we telling our children to honor our mother and father? Like I said, I don't want to get into that. That's what we'll take on next week. We're going to take on, provoking not our children to wrath? Are we doing that? Oh yeah, and then the next part says, but bring them up in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. Are we bringing them up in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord? We want to throw scripture at them, but are we doing what we supposed to do? All right. Until next week, I want y'all to stay encouraged. I want y'all to stay blessed, and I want y'all to give God glory.